Mitch, good to go. Yes? Good. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's program, NAC at Home. My name is Ben Hartley. I'm the Executive Director at the National Arts Club. I'm so happy today to have Jerry Saltz and Andrew Goldstein joining us. For those of you who don't know us, the National Arts Club is a 501c3, a non-profit. We present 150 free programs a year in our beautiful historic mansion on Gramercy Park. Over 40,000 people come and enjoy the programs. If you don't get a chance to come to the club one day soon, we hope, please follow us on YouTube. You can see this program repeated on YouTube, or come to our website. We do programs on a regular basis, 2, 3, 4, and 5 times a week. Today, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Jerry Saltz, 2018 Pulitzer Prize winner, art critic for New York Magazine, and general all-round art world flaneur and sage. He's joined by Andrew Goldstein, who is editor-in-chief of artnet. Andrew's an old friend and colleague, former colleague, and artnet is the world's most read news publication covering art world and the art market. Truly a must-read for everyone in the art world. Andrew and Jerry, thanks so much for joining us today. Andrew, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ben. So I'm Andrew Goldstein, the editor-in-chief of ArtNet News and also host of the Art Angle podcast. And it's a pleasure to be with you here today to talk to the great art critic Jerry Saltz about something at least a little bit less depressing than what we're seeing in the news day after day. The topic: art, artists, the people who want to be them, and the world they will find themselves in should they succeed. There aren't many people who are better equipped to address this topic than Jerry, the Pulitzer Prize-winning art critic for New York Magazine, who you definitely already know. He's been in movies, he's been a judge on a reality TV show, his social media following is off the charts, and now he's just published his 5th book, called How to Be an Artist, over here. It evolved out of a 2018 New York Magazine article of the same name, and contains 63 pieces of practical, inspiring, and empowering advice for people who, for whatever reason, wish they were the next Hilma af Klint, Kerry James Marshall, or, God forbid, Picasso. Okay, so we're going to jump into a freewheeling conversation here in the manner of these new Zoom things, starting with the book and moving on from there. At the end, we're going to open up the floor to questions from the audience, so if you have any, just type them into the chat at the bottom of the screen. How does that sound to you, Jerry?
It sounds great, Andrew, and it's really good to see you from where I am in Northwest Connecticut. I apologize to everybody for being a bit of a slow talker. I'm finding out during lockdown. We're about 2 hours north of New York. That's with my wife, Roberta Smith, who is the best art critic in my opinion. And we've been here, this is day 55 for us out of New York. And we've never made any secret that Roberta had uterine cancer in 2014, and then 2 recurrences, 3 huge operations. She's doing great on immunotherapy, which all of you will eventually be on, and it's good stuff, so you don't have to worry so much. But our sheltering in place has a lot of moving parts. So while we did not want really to leave New York, because we don't have another life, just this art, and we learned how to make it talk, but we had to come. And Roberta at first refused, so where are you, Andrew? I have no idea, really.
Well, by some weird coincidence, I'm about 20 miles away from you.
Boom. We should all be Google Earth visiting each other. Like, give your address. I've been doing this and swooping on everybody's house and getting totally green-eyed monster jealous of everyone's life.
Well, it is nice to be in the green at this moment. But before we get sidetracked by this crazy, weird scenario that we're living through in the world, I just want to talk about your book a little bit because it is really a great read. I just read it. It's diverting, it's entertaining, it's filled with incredible quotes that I don't know how you managed to accrue them from all these different sources. And it dropped in March, right around when the pandemic hit. So it's about how to be an artist. And a critical piece of information here is that you were actually an artist yourself before you became a critic. What kind of art did you make?
Ah, well, the embarrassing answer to that is not good enough to keep being an artist. Or maybe it was good. I wrote a whole column, article, essay about it called My Life, Andrew, as a Failed Artist. And in it, I don't want to get into it, but I talk about the 10 years that I spent making art. Now, some of you probably know I have no degrees, so I don't know what I'm talking about. And the same demons that live in your mouth live in my mouth. And they would say to me what yours said to you this morning: you don't know what you're doing. You don't know, you're a fake. You're not educated enough. You've already said everything you said. Who cares about what you're saying? You have a bad neck. You have no hair. It goes on and on. You don't have enough money. You don't know how to schmooze. And well, I behold somebody that's listened to the demons. This book, How to Be an Artist, is really a note to my younger self, Andrew. Of I wish I could have known then what I learned in the subsequent 30, I'm 69 now, so I quit being an artist in my late 20s. I can't do math. Nobody in the art world can. That might be 40, 50, 30 years. Nobody listening to this knows, but it's a note to my former self about what it takes to get through those long days and hard nights, dark nights. What I learned from every artist, every writer like you, every work of art I've ever seen, and a lot of idiotic quotes, like I love that you like some of them, that I've used as talismans to get through and keep working and have the one thing that I want everybody here to have, which is a life lived in art. And that's what the book is for. It's not about how to make you a rich or famous artist. If you know how to do that, write the book. I could not write a book called How to Be a Critic because I don't have the slightest idea how you do that. So that's what the book is, and it's divided into very short. If you can't read this damn book, you can't read a book. Very short, 1-page goddamn chapters. Sometimes they only go a half a page. So really buy the book. This is my 6th book, and the total I made from the first 5 books, I just told Andrew this yesterday, was a total of 0. None of us are doing what we do for the money. I want all of you to make as much money as possible. Me too. I want the bad, the good, the bad, and the very bad to make money. I never begrudge that, but as Andrew can tell you, writing is not the way to make money. The writing is a way just to have a life in art. So that's what the book is, and I hope you'll buy it and get to work, you big babies.
So you mentioned your New York Magazine article that you called My Life as a Failed Artist, which was a terrific article. In fact, it was one of the articles that won you your Pulitzer. At the same time, it's not exactly the best resume line for somebody who's going to write a book on how to be an artist.
No.
Is there something about being a failed artist that gave you greater insight into what makes a successful artist?
That's a great question. The one thing I think being any kind of artist gave me was a sense of the process itself, how much paint weighs, what it smells like, what it sounds like, how those hours of being alone are, as opposed to the way you spend your hours as a writer or I do, being alone. However, I would tell all people that go, how can somebody that doesn't, and this applies to both me and Andrew, everybody, they say, how can you two write about art if you don't make it? I would say, excuse me, would you tell people that have never made wine not to write about wine? Movie critics have never made a film. Baseball writers, Roger Angel is the Shakespeare at the New Yorker of baseball, and he couldn't play an inning. So please chill. That is an ancient, romantic, born only in the early 19th century, idiotic, mostly male idea. So wherever I started answering this, I don't know. But all I can tell everybody listening to this is I became an art critic by saying I was one. After driving a truck for 10 years and being completely exiled. And don't forget, everybody, I am Jewish. Sorry, I'm Jewish, so I didn't drive 18-wheelers. I don't think Jews are allowed to do that. Andrew Goldstein over there in an 18-wheeler. My CB handle was the Jewish cowboy. I would get on and go, shalom, partner, and no one ever spoke to me. But I was so miserable by the end of this 10 years of driving to New York or to Florida once a month, just miserable as everybody gets doing the jobs that they don't want to do in the real world where it's very hard. And one day I just thought, I've got to get back in the art world. I really was thinking of it all the time. And I thought, well, I can't be a dealer because I have no money and I can't add. And I don't want to be a curator because I don't want to listen to artists say, put it over there. Because I don't want, what? You know, I'm my own asshole. I don't need somebody to, else to be one. Anyway, I went through all the jobs and I never wrote a word in my life. I could barely read. I graduated at the bottom of my very large high school class. And for some reason I thought, being a writer, that must be easy, which was pretty stupid. And in New York, one of the great things in any large city, anybody listening to this will know, is when you tell somebody in a large city what you do, what do? And you go, I'm an art critic. They'll go, cool. And you are an art critic. So then all you have to do is put your ass in the chair and sit down and get to work. And that took me a bunch of years. So that's where I'm coming from. That's how I landed here. And somehow I'm still holding on. I don't know how you started. I met you when you were a kid, Andrew Goldstein. You were writing for a now, I think, defunct newspaper called the New York Observer, I think. And you interviewed me about a new social media, and I had started posting on called Facebook. But so we all, nobody does this intentionally. We all back into it if you are not an artist.
Well, I got to ask you because, you've been a very illustrious critic for as long as many of your fans remember you. I don't think you're known primarily as an artist these days. But in the book, you talk about artists using the pronoun we. Do you still think of yourself as an artist?
No. When you say the word and I ask myself if I am that, I'll be very honest with you this afternoon. I almost want to cry because it was a beautiful physical memory that will never leave my body. I have it now, of that time spent. And you could listen to music. Andrew and I can't blast shitty music all day long. There I go again. I'm not an artist. I think of myself, how I frame myself to get through the days is something of a never as a writer. I never think of that. It sounds, an art critic is much too exotic for me. I think of myself as a kind of folk critic, or a Sister Wendy, if any of you are old enough to know who this English nun was that did art classes, art history classes for television, the BBC. Bob Ross was a favorite of mine. I want art to do what it says it's supposed to do, which is be for anyone. It's not for everyone, but it could be for anyone. We just don't know who that is. Some people will go, it's not for me. I like race car driving, which is great. But anyway, that's what I think of myself as. That's how I power through every single day.
So in your first big post-pandemic essay titled The Last Days of the Art World, you approvingly quoted the painter Peter Saul as saying, "There are just too many artists, period." Why do you think the world needs more artists? Why do you want to send this book out there and meet new artists all over the world?
Really a good and a very fair question. I think there can never be too many artists. I think that everyone is creative. Their creativity was with us in the caves. That creativity is a survival mechanism, in fact, that Darwin himself said. He never said it's survival of the fittest or the strongest. A terrible misunderstanding that he spent the whole second part of his life trying to clear up. He said it's adaptation of those most able, it's survival by those most able to adapt. And that is what is happening with art right now. Right now, art is exactly in those conditions that it's been made in for over 99% of its lifetime, of the last, say, 75,000 years, which is under pressure, in small spaces, in intimate settings. People are making things out of themselves. People are making art with what's ever at hand. People are making things, writing, whatever, in these settings with cooking going on over there. The kids are going batshit back there. Nana is trying to do the laundry. The dog is running in. This is exactly how most things have been made. When the studio, the office, the bedroom, the kitchen, the playroom, the temple, all of it was one room. Our art world was beautiful, and I helped build that world in the 1980s and 90s with millions of other people, and all artists did. And then we all know that it answered every question with the same two answers. It just got, and Andrew has written about this himself. He's talked to people about it scores of times. None of this is new. The two answers were always get bigger, get busier. And we did. And the art world got bloated. If I have a bone to pick with him, it's that I have no idea why we cover auction results. I always think, well, I want all artists to make money, and those 55 mostly male white artists are doing well. And it's the same, more or less, 55 artists with new ones thrown in and some old ones disappear that we write on, and we write about how much their art cost at a 2-day circus, which is fine with me. I have no begrudging. But then I always go, why is this like in the New York Times? Fine. It's on ArtNet, it's in Art News, it's in Artsy, it's just like everywhere. And how did I get here? Right,
Happy to answer that question.
Do I think there's too many artists? No, but I think that art got bloated. It lost its ability to adapt in some ways. It became like this big production. Nothing wrong with that, but it also got too expensive. Where the richest collectors I've ever met, most of them can't even afford, like a brand new MFA artist would cost $52,000. Again, no problem with the kid making money. He just spent, or she did, $250,000 going to a probably phony baloney program. Many of them are great, great, great. And I want all artists, if they can, to stay up late in art schools. But what I was quoting from Saul was more of the spirit of, come on, people, we've got to earn our way. We can't just go, yeah, I'm $55,000 in, I'm 22 years old, or 72 and doing it. Each one of us has to earn our way every day, including Andrew, including me. Every piece I write, I think, after I got the Pulitzer, which was in this room, Roberta was 10 feet from me, and I started getting emails on the corner of my computer. And they said, Pulitzer. And the first one I saw was from my editor at New York Magazine. And I wrote him back going, congratulations. Congratulations to New York Magazine. The night I got the Pulitzer, I thought, I probably will be able to keep my job for 11 more months. The demons don't go away. So yes, Andrew, I'm sorry. I told everybody I was a blabbermouth when they asked me, is this over yet? Are there too many artists? No, there could be more. And I want my book to show that art has been more than what we made it in the last 20 years, which was always at 52 inches high in a white, clean room, always expensive. That art is not a noun, that it's a verb. It makes people pregnant. It stops people from getting pregnant. The paintings in sarcophaguses in Egypt were never meant to be seen by human beings. You see, like I say, they protect armies. The Venus of Willendorf, which is not this, I surmise was made by women, these first sculptures, as fertility figures, right? To get pregnant, to make sure you could breastfeed, whatever. That's what art is to me. It's magic.
So you asked about auction results, and I think that's actually an interesting way to segue a bit, because my theory about the value of auction results is that artists are like an organism. And if you imagine a plant needs carbon dioxide, it needs water, it needs sunlight in order to survive. And one form of the sustenance that artists need is money. And in the art world, the art market has been incredibly opaque for forever. And auctions are the only place where the price is said out loud in a room with lots of other people there. So for a long time, that was where you could get actual, visible market data to chart this kind of, this nutrient that is going to artists. But now, of course, we're in this crazy world where auctions can't take place. You can't go into a physical sales room and jostle next to the person, with the person next to you to place your bid. It's changing everything. It seems that everything is now being questioned, and obviously museums, galleries are closed all over America. They're starting to reopen in Europe and Asia. But I want to ask you, as an art critic, what do you do when there are no shows that you can go and see and critique? What's your role?
Okay, first about auctions. They're not taking place, you know. I don't buy any of that answer you gave on some level. Yeah, it makes the market more transparent than it normally is. Like if you go into a mega gallery with the same artists and the same collectors and the same curators at this very tiny sliver of the art world. We're reporting over and over. 99% of the reporting is on 1% of 1% of 1% of the art world as far as people go. And then it's just on numbers. I mean, can George Condo, who I know, he's fine, or Rudy Stingel, who I love, can they really make 225 good paintings a year? Each one selling for $1 million? And what does it matter? And you're talking about, well, the auctions can't go on. So what? It doesn't mean anything to anyone listening to this podcast or lecture or talk. As far as me, and I don't begrudge any of it again, because they'll go, oh, Jerry, he's just half-cocked. You know, it sets a market. It doesn't set a market. It sets this market at the very, very, very top. And the rest, they'll throw you out in 2 seconds. They'll just spit you up and throw you out. And who cares, frankly? Look, the last line of my piece on zombie formalism in 2014, I said what was obvious to me now, and it's absolutely proven. When the money goes away, so will the art. Because collectors, the market, became so dumb that all it did was the market would buy what other people in the market bought already. So if you bought one of these, somebody else would. I love the mega galleries as much as I like a tiny space out in Bushwick. I've never missed a show at these places. Sometimes I don't even know what the new Pace Gallery was exactly when it opened up, 7 floors of something, but everything's being remade, as you say. But they're just as good as the smallest fighting for their lives galleries in Bushwick, or just as bad. And it's our job at ArtNet, at New York Magazine, to show art and artists the respect of being able to go, this is a little off. George Condo is my favorite artist, but 35 paintings last week. My withdrawal symptoms of not seeing art in the flesh have been severe. Roberta and I used to see 20 or 30 shows a week. We have no other life like you, except you run a great, I would say right now, the best online art magazine. That's what, and I know you have a whole auction side, but I've never figured out how the fuck to get into it, which is fine. I tried to go to the what's it called? The art fair of Frieze last week. I couldn't figure it out. They gave me a VIP number to go into the Frieze fair. Why? Anyway. So I've chosen this time, Andrew, not to do the beautiful list links of where you can go online to see art. And you've done, among many, many things this month, these last 2 months, great things. But I begged my editors at New York, don't use me for that. I want to take my work deeper. Now that sounds pretentious. I know this, okay? And it's probably gotten shallower and stupider. But there are weird warblings in art that I've looked at my whole life, and I want to write about those. I wrote an essay on Peter Bruegel's The Triumph of Death. I just finished another one on a Botticelli painting, an almost unknown I wrote this essay called The Last Days of the Art World, but it wasn't apocalyptic because the second part of the title was, and this is what I want everyone to listen to me on, it said, and maybe the first days too. Because right now, you might be looking at my side of the screen, but really you're going to end up looking at that side of the screen. That I already built an art world, and it was big, and it was beautiful, and it changed the world. It really did. The Tate Museum was built by the art world that I used to hang around in with every one of those people. And they were just alcoholic English people. They're still that because they're English, and the Germans stayed up later and vomiting. But all of you are being tasked now to build a new world, to dispose in a way of what Andrew was just talking about. And it won't be an efficient art world. It'll be an eccentric art world. It won't be professional. You'll be the smelly shamans again. And I don't say this romantically. The smelly shamans that live on the edge of the village, who, for some reason, the village decides, I guess we need whatever they're making because, and this is key, art has never not been here since the beginning, my loves. That means it's as necessary as economics, philosophy, religion, psychology, TV, whatever you want to call it. We don't understand it, and it will only go away when every problem that it was invented to solve has been solved. It is the most advanced operating system our species has ever developed to examine consciousness, the invisible world, the visible world, the dreamed world, to render the three-dimensional world in 2 dimensions. It's batshit adaptable, and then it'll disappear. So I miss seeing art in the flesh real bad, but I'm writing my ass off. I've never worked so hard. I want to make every second count. I'm writing as if I, who will probably never gain immunity to this disease because I can't bring it to my wife. And so we cannot venture that way. I may never set foot in the real world again. But I was always so bashful, I never wanted to be there. I wanted to get out even while I was in, not to quit the art world, but to get to participate like this by not even showing up.
So you talked about how art is infinitely adaptive, and the art world is always adapting to new scenarios. Obviously, right now, the scenario that the art world is adapting to is this virtual thing. Just like you and I are now. I never even wanted to do a FaceTime call before this whole thing happened because it seemed to me like it was just a gimmicky kind of piece of tech. But now we're naturally talking to each other, just like Darth Vader and one of his lieutenants communicate from the Death Star across like eons of space. It's kind of remarkable. But it sounds like from what you're saying, that you are, instead of kind of diving into this ooze of development and innovation, that you're instead looking back into history and looking back into yourself. Well, why not dive into the ooze?
The news?
Or the ooze, the primordial ooze of all this technological art stuff, of online viewing rooms and whatever else is happening.
I do go to those online viewing rooms, but I think that art, like they say, is long, and that we never understand it. It's like never understanding a Mozart sonata. we never understand it. And so while of course I look at contemporary art and get jealous of, Cecily Brown sold a painting yesterday for $5.5 million, your publication reported. So I got to feel the green-eyed monster, they're rich, everybody's bad. All that's good. I love high school with money, which is what art world became. So I am looking at all of that. I look at all those things online all the time. I actually think that all art is contemporary art. To tell you the truth, if I wrote about cave paintings, Andrew, that's just as contemporary as me writing about, a Henry Taylor new painting that he's working on and posting about. All art is contemporary because I see it now. I actually wonder, Andrew, I'm not trying to ruin our talk. Should we ask if people want to ask us questions?
Oh yeah, they are putting questions in the side, and I definitely will get to them. I just want a few more minutes of you to myself, because I'm you talk about cave paintings and you talk about Botticelli, they're all dealing with the reality of their time in this profound way. Have you noticed any art being made now in this strange, very, very new era of the coronavirus that you think is addressing it in an interesting way? Any kind of surprising or potentially lasting art that's being made now?
There's no doubt that the content of this moment is being embedded in your work, every person's work alive. This is a very rare, completely shared molecule that we're all living through. You might be painting flowers still, or painting stripes or triangles, the first to do a triangle, or whatever. But I promise you, my loves, the content of now will end up in your triangle. We almost owe it to the dead as the angel of death walks among us, close, very close. And those suffering and about to suffer, not to claim for our own work. I'm addressing the coronavirus. That is not what Andrew was saying at all. So I think it would behoove us all to stay humble that way, which is a word we're using now today after Anthony Fauci beat the crap out of Rand Paul about you should be more humble. Screw you. You led us into this hell. You let in pale death, right? These are masters of war. But we must never, as the art will claim, I'm addressing it. You are addressing it, just don't say you are, okay? Do I think I'm addressing it? I don't think about it. I know when I go shopping for our food now, that the world is very different in my mask, and I am asking myself, if I touch somebody almost, is my quarantine dead? Did I just ruin something from this bag of green beans that I picked up? Are you my angel of death? In 14 days, I'll get, all of that is in your work, everybody listening to this. So just stay safe. There's a rich corona and a poor corona, and we can never forget that 5% of the art world, the art world lives almost in the 5%. No matter how poor we all are, and we are way down at the bottom, and we don't have a seat at the Trump stimulus table, and we're never going to have a seat. Our life, if we get to be here, working from home, and not having to go out every day, enough. So, thank God.
You mentioned the triangle, which I probably maybe passed over a couple people, but it's a quote from Art World Confidential, which is one of my favorite movies about the art world. And in your book, you have piece of advice number 41 is, quote, no, you don't need graduate school. So considering that art schools, which were already very expensive, incredibly expensive, are evolving into these remote teaching facilities, and a lot of people are probably going to start seeing them as not being as critical as before, maybe not being really a valid use of money, especially when 25% of the population in the United States is predicted to become unemployed. What impact do you think the diminishing potential relevance of art schools is going to have on art?
Boy, is that a pertinent question to now. We all know they became much too expensive. Tenure is bullshit. I say this as a geezer. It's bullshit. It's a way that you cannot ever adapt because people like me are given shitty courses to teach because they can't fire us. Footnote, I've never had contract. I've never had tenure. I don't have a contract at New York Magazine. I've never had an assistant. I've never worked with another human being. This is not a complaint. So we know that schools have gotten way top heavy in our foot. However, I want all artists, on the other hand, to have the experience that comes from that, which is very simple. And we need schools for this reason. We're just going to have to rebuild them. People like Andrew will be the president of one, or the put upon president of one, where artists are vampires, man. They have to stay up late, just like Andrew does with his people when on his way up to this being the editor-in-chief of the best there is right now. You had to stay up late every single night with your goddamn peers, eating with them, drinking with them, sleeping with them, having the biggest fight of your life. And then the next morning swearing blood brothers and blood sisters. We know this. I want art schools to be like that, where you spend time together and make a new language. We have to have a more fluid teaching thing. I don't teach. Nobody asks me. I'm an idiot. I'm not an idiot. I love my work. But, look at me. Are they going to ask me to teach? No. So I don't have that job. And a lot of the teachers that have them are phenomenal. But come on, it's not 100%. And we got to change this. It's got to get cheaper. And I do want it in person for you when you do go back to school. And you kids, you will go back to school. You already know this, and it will be fucking fantastic. Just don't go broke doing it. And never pay back your student loans. Never, never, never. What the fuck are they going to do to you? Throw you in jail? No. Everything's changed, man. You are pirates. You are mutiny on the bountying this goddamn thing. Just make up the rules. If you build it, they will come. Mark me. I fail at everything, and look what happened to me. You can't be a bigger loser than me.
So this environment that you talk about with people hanging out, staying up late, talking to each other, that sounds a lot like the New York art scene. That it's a little bit like a free art school in a way, because there's so much compacted, frisson of creativity and excitement around it, that this whole virus is obviously terrible for the New York art scene, because it is going to close a lot of businesses. It's going to make livelihoods impossible or much harder. But are there any ways in which you think it might be good for the New York art scene?
New York's greatest gift has always been one thing and one thing only, which is its density. That I could go out, Andrew, and run into you without having to call you to ask you to meet me, and I'm too shy to do that. So when I used to meet you in the galleries, I'd be like, oh, hello, how are you? Good to see you. Oh, I gotta go. But inside I was like, I'm so excited I got to talk to him, and we compared two dumb ideas, and then he went that way and I went this way, and that was great. New York is now at a disadvantage for the first time. Everybody listening to this outside of New York, I hate you because I'm jealous of you. As Andrew mentioned, many other countries are going to open up because they have leaders and tracking programs and testing. America, we know, is a failed state, and it's only becoming more of what it already was. However, in Los Angeles or wherever you are, you're not taking an elevator and the subway to get to the crowded gallery. Yes, we're lucky in New York. We're all full all the time. But suddenly, all these other places are at an advantage. Can I get into an elevator again? Go up to my office on the 41st floor at New York Magazine? Not sure. Not sure. So what I would tell everybody listening to this, open up shitty spaces. If you build it, they will come. I promise you. This is a new art world. Yes, maybe there'll be too much reporting again on the same people because they're great. I love them. I helped build all of that bad, wonderful, tremendous, tremendous world. But if you build it, they will come. And people like Andrew will smell that blood in the water, and he will send more and more and more writers making no money, but he's not making much either, to cover your bad shows and to show you the respect of not only writing what we ended up reading, which was all positive criticism all the time. Unless they were reviewing me. I'm the only one that gets negative reviews, but I know I'm annoying. I don't mean to be, but I am. I try to hold that guy back. But that's what I'm looking for. And I may not live to see it, but that's fine with me.
So there are a couple of great questions I see percolating in the chat, but before we get to that, I want to ask, what is a day in the life of Jerry Saltz like right now? What do you do when you wake up? What do you do during the day? When do you do your work? What do you do at night? How do you make use of this time alone at home with Roberta?
I want to write a book that a friend of mine, Amy LaRocca at New York Magazine, mentioned the title. And I want to write a book called Codependent Some More, where I am so happy being with her all the time. I know it's pathetic, but I am very happy. My days haven't changed much. I'm very lucky to live in the 5%, right? I've always worked from home. My life has always been, see 20 or 30 shows a week. That's gone. And then write about them for 5 or 6 days from early in the morning till very late at night. I have no social life. As I wrote recently in a piece I want everyone to read, I think it's called Eating, on an art critic's appetites. And it's about my whole life of suicides, death, pandemic, food, our weird coffee habits that you probably seen. I drink anyway, and becoming an art critic. I wake up in the morning early, and I usually sit right here and I write all day. The only difference now is I'm writing on art that I haven't seen. And occasionally, if I get work blocked 3, 4, 5 times a day, it's really 5 times an hour, but I might go online, and I have an idea of like, oh, Picasso, he did a geometric thing, and I'll find the wrong picture, and then I'll save the picture, and it turns out that it's like, I'm ruining the whole talk right now. right? That it could look something like that. And then I would post that with a stupid caption. And then I don't think about it again till late at night. I come back and I read it. We don't cook, so there's no bread baking here. And I'll tell you the one loss I have felt, Andrew. I have not been able to concentrate on reading.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm accepting, because that world of going away, for some reason I'm not doing that. I do a lot of politics, as people know. I'm yelling, I'm screaming, people then, you know. So just keep doing everything you've been doing, and know that everybody listening to this, that what you're modeling right now for yourself is going to save your life so many times. You'll be able to look back at this when the demons speak to you, and you'll go, really? Well, I lived through those 24 months of death everywhere, of people I know dying, of an art world dying, of the galleries I loved maybe not opening again, but of having the faith in art and knowing, like they say, art is long.
Have you, I hate to ask, but have you lost any people in your circle of to the virus?
Like most people in the art world, I know Maurice Berger very well, and he died on March 19th or 20th of the coronavirus, a great critic. Joshua Dechter, who he and I fight all the time on Twitter, but he had it, but he's doing fine. One of my godchildren had it and is fine. I have several godchildren. It's not who you think it is. It's close. Do you know anybody who died, Andrew?
As a matter of fact, I'm very lucky to say that outside of our coverage, where we've been covering quite a bit, it has been mainly secondarily that I hear through a friend who but you know, it seems like this is early days. Maybe to end on a lighter note before handing it over to the questions, you mentioned your coffee cup and your coffee consumption. Recently, you were in the news because you posted a photograph of the back of your truck filled with 18 7-Eleven big gulps full of coffee. And the comments on these articles are about as venomous and hatred filled as you can imagine. What is it about your coffee consumption that drives people so crazy?
Let me answer this quickly so we can take care of some of the questions. Roberta and I have streamlined our lives. Coffee, for all people listening to this, is some kind of a ritual. You've got your way, he's got his way, we've got ours. I buy cups of coffee, black coffee, decaf and calf, from the deli or the gas station when we're in Northwest Connecticut. I then take them home, and you can see pictures of this in this week's New York Magazine, okay? Today is May 12th. If you want to look at it online, it's there. And then I bought 5 of these in 2014 with a metal straw. Hear it? Can you hear that it's metal? So there's no waste. I save every cup. Look at this. There's a cup and a cup, and I use it for hot water or tea. And we make iced coffee and have 2 or 3 of these a day. And criticism never sleeps, babe. But boy, the whole fucking world went nuts. It was on the national news. What's wrong with him? And I just said, the world that I come from, people used to drink deli coffee, diner coffee, gas station coffee. It's very good. No waste, though. Nothing is thrown out.
So on that note, I'm going to go to some more serious and well thought through questions in the chat. And this one comes from Tommy. He says, does this feel like a clean slate for the art world? Do you think the current market norms / patterns will go back to usual?
Thank you, Tommy, really, for the question. I think a couple of things. After 9/11 and after 2008, but particularly if you're old enough to remember 9/11, everyone knew that we should not become warlike. And America, of course, became more of what it already was. After 2008, everybody knew that that art market and all markets had to go. And as Andrew has written about 1,000,000 times brilliantly in his publication, that art market only became more of what it already was. I would only beg you all not to forget about the filter of the market and money, because I guess you can't when you walk into Larry Gagosian's, Death Star and see a painting by Picasso. How can you forget that MoMA, who is the third richest institution in this country, can't even afford to do a late Picasso show for the insurance? And Gagosian has done some of the best shows done in this world during this horrendous market. But we have got to stop thinking about the market. No one is thinking about the market except him and those writers, and they want it transparent. Yes, there's a market, but okay, that's about 10% of the art world. What about the other 90? That's me. He's going to defend it. So let him answer.
No, I'm gonna go to somebody who's got a question that is more pertinent to the topic of this conversation, which comes from Joel Ebner, and it begins, "Hello, Jerry.
Hey, Joel.
What would you recommend for somebody hoping to make a slowish transition from one career to one making art? Is this possible? And if so, how?"
Before I answer Joel, I have to go back. And when we talk about a clean slate, we're Americans. We don't do clean slate, okay? And never wish for anything to die. So we may want a clean slate, but that means him. It means me. It probably means you if you're listening to this, okay? So there's not going to be a clean slate, thank God. As far as transitioning, Joel, I transitioned, but we've all transitioned. I can only say you have to make the world your graduate school and find the world you're trying to transition into. If it's music, poetry, rock and roll, art, writing, you have to start staying up late every night with your peers. It's important to not find geezers like me. I'm out of scale for you now. There's nothing I can do for you. I can pretend, so I get to have younger people like you like me, and I get to have pictures taken with you, and they always go, my older friends go, "How do you know all those young people?" And, "Oh, I just do," but I don't. You must show up. I had it on my desk, but I keep John Cage's, I think it's called 10 Pieces of Advice to Young Artists and stuff like that. John Cage, it's written 1,000,000 years ago, but more and more it becomes important. Show up. It's the people, he said, who show up, who start to catch on to things, that you're not just a lone vampire feeding on rats, Joel. I'm more bashful, pathologically bashful than you, and I had to do it for 25 years. I had to swallow every anxiety attack, everything. So if Andrew did it with no hair and I did it with no hair, this is a nightmare. You want to talk about bad neck? This is worse.
You've got more than I do, Jerry. So here's a great question, which I think is really well that you're very well equipped to answer, which is, It comes from Daniela Palimariu, and it says, what advice do you have for an artist-run gallery? Is the future ours?
The future is everybody's, Daniela. It's not going to belong to any one group. The Death Star is not going to turn its, laser beams on itself. Middle tier galleries are going to fight tooth and nail, small ones. Artist-run galleries, if you can focus on critics, artists, collectors, etc., around your age, you will become gods. And you will then enter whatever new art world is going on in about the year 2029, 2020, 30, 31. And all this will be an ancient memory. Do you remember that after the 1918-19 pandemic, it was never written about, never spoken about really again till now? The roaring 20s started. You understand this? Rock and roll was born after World War II, after the worst suffering, etc. It doesn't belong to anybody, but if you build it, you big babies, they will come. Don't aim for him or me. Get one of his younger critics. Take them to dinner. They're just as poor as you. And just keep your credibility. Never do anything that you lose that. Never show an artist that you're not in love with, and never do your sales patter on Andrew Goldstein or me. It's unbearable.
Okay, here's a question from Lisa Layton.
Didn't hear the name.
And this is also, it's a great question. Lisa Layton.
Okay.
And the question is, in your opinion, do art teachers have to be quote unquote practicing artists, meaning studio maintaining, selling artists?
A quick answer, that sounds good to me. If your teacher hates art, hates the market, hates the art world, says it's all fucked up, I would say get away from that person as fast as you can with respect. And if they can't brave their own demons, at least as to my age, they're not good for you. They won't help you brave, like Andrew and I have talked about, the dark nights of 3:15 a.m. every night. You think that Roberta and I don't wake up at 4:30 going, I'm pretty sure everything I wrote yesterday is bottoming out. Then you have to be up for an hour talking about it or worrying about it. Then you fall asleep, you're being jealous of Cecily again. And then you wake up and you sneak up on your work. You bring your coffee or whatever your drug of choice is, and you get your ass in the chair like that bad teacher of yours. Get to work.
Okay, here's
Thanks,
another question.
Lisa.
From Manya Panchishin, and now if I pronounce that properly, I'll be shocked. But so sorry, Manya. But how do you define success for an artist?
Oh, Manya, this is important, especially with talking about the market the way we all do, and success is fame. It's good to have people recognize me. I walk down the street, people always go, are you? And I go, it's me. It's me. And we talk about art, but that's what I wanted, okay? But the real definition of success, my loves, all of you, is one word, and it's time. It's the time to make your work. The phony baloney jobs that you've had to have, truck drivers, chauffeurs, working in galleries, drywall. I picked up golf balls from a driving range, okay? Then you get that job down to 4 days a week. And then you're so crafty as a sneaky artist that you figure out how to work 3 days a week. And that's like teaching. It's like what he does. It's not what I did. No, he works a lot. He's an editor. Then you have time. That's success to me. And one more thing, all of you babies. How many people do you think it takes to have a career? I've written about this. It takes very few. One dealer. If you can't pull the wool over one lousy idiot's eyes, I'm sorry. I've been doing it at New York Magazine. It's your job, one dealer, okay? How many collectors do you really think you need? I would say max out at 4 if you're lucky, or maybe even 5. Robert Ryman and that entire generation lived on that many collectors until Sotheby's and bullshit happened. How many critics? 1 or 2, your own age. A curator would be nice. Am I forgetting people? Whatever. Can you convince 12 people of your crapola work? Come on. I've done it. He's done it. God knows. I did not know he was going to be huge, but I knew he had drive. And what I measure when I meet people, Andrew included, when he first interviewed me, is he had character and drive. And I kept seeing him show up. I wasn't welcome in his world maybe as much. He wasn't as welcome in mine, but that doesn't matter. That's the high school bullshit. That was cool because I kept seeing him. And by the way, women and artists of color, the doors of the art world were just fucking finally being open to you. My guess is the person that asked is the slate wiped clean. One thing that will continue to do is pushing for diversity. And I think that can't be bad. And all of you thinking, yeah, but crappy women artists are getting through, or there's crapola Ecuadorian painters. Let me just be honest. I think that women and artists of color should be allowed to be as mediocre as famous male mediocre artists. If Sean Scully can have a gigundo career that he reports on and it's $3 million for more fuzzy stripes, I'm good with that. Your mediocre stripes are fine. And then when you're my age, if climate change hasn't made us lock all of that art in the basement, okay, for 500, 600 years as we adapt, when you're my age, you will get the chance, and Andrew probably will be among these people, to sort out the mediocre. That woman was bad, she's out. Sean Scully, out. Maybe Hans Hofmann won't be as necessary. Maybe he will. The canon was being rewritten, and you will continue to do that.
Well, I got to say, I'm really happy to hear that. It wasn't incredibly annoying when I would come up to you and Roberta in the galleries, because I was always so starstruck, you know, honestly.
He would do that. And if you can talk to people that are kind of well known or you admire or you hate without doing your sales pitch or without being a cynical wise ass, you can have the whole world. And Andrew is a pretty sincere guy. This weird emotion that people put down for 20 years turns out, in his case, to work. Again, men with no hair, we have a lot of other troubles, and he was always like this, I was, so we had to develop weird personalities.
Okay, so as one last question, and you mentioned earlier how you're very politically engaged for a long time. Your Facebook photo was you and Bill Clinton. Here is a question from Ria Baraz. What do you think will happen with the elections?
I think we're going to beat him like a drum, but we can never be satisfied, ever, in any state. I want a 40-state victory, if it's possible. I think that Trump won the election by 77,774 votes in 4 states. Those people are being persuaded by people you should be listening to that are the never Trump Republicans. They know how to tear the shit out of us. And they also then know how to tear the shit out of Trump and get right at his voters. And they're taking care of that 77,774. But this has to be decisive. If it isn't, that's the end, I think. And I don't think Trumpism is going away at all. I think you'll see Don and Ivanka. Donald Jr. Blocked me. So did Serb Gorka. So did Piers Morgan. I have really good people that blocked me. How I got under their skin, we have to really go for it. Although I'm going to be honest with you, one last thing, and I'll stay here for the rest of the day answering questions if you want. But I'm scared to go to my polling place on 10th Street where I vote. It's packed with old Jews, and they can't do anything. It usually takes me on an off election about an hour and a half to vote. The presidential elections, it really, I have to pull people through. I pull Roberta through, all the people on crutches I grab and say, don't follow the rules, just come with me. I hope, that's all. Beat the shit out of them. They paid in blood, but not their own.
A little addendum of my own to that question is, what should the art world do? What can artists do? What do you think curators can do? What can the people who are listening do if they want to help somehow?
Me? I'm from another world, another generation. My mom and dad vote for Trump. If I'm your age and young, I disown him. Just for 5 years, just until he's gone. That's me. I pay in blood, but my own when it comes to politics. I'm not high and mighty. I've been an asshole. I've made so many mistakes in public, online, posting with Bill Clinton, knowing that he's, kind of a serial sleaze, okay? Yeah, I got to meet him and I wanted to show him my thong because he has charisma. So there I was, standing with him. I too have made a lot of those mistakes, but once Trump came down that escalator, I think every white man, especially older ones, really had to hold themselves in check and go, wow, this must not be. I cannot contribute to this any longer. So all you older male painters listening to this, we're going to have to step aside. You want me to step aside? I hope I can when my time comes. Well, write me questions, post them anywhere, get them to me. I love that all of you are listening. It means the world to me because I'm just as alone and isolated in my work as you.
Well, I think that's a profound place to end. Thank you very much, Jerry. And if anybody, this is going to be recorded as a video, so people can access it afterwards. It will also be an episode of the Art Angle podcast if you prefer to get your news through your ear. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining and buy the book.
And on behalf of the National Arts Club, I want to say thanks to Jerry and Andrew. Encourage you to buy Jerry's book. And you can find our other upcoming programs at nationalartsclub.org and search National Arts Club on social media. So thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, Mitch. Thank you, Andrew, for your great work. And thank you, National Arts Club. It takes a pretty goddamn big village, and that's what we all are together. And I miss you all more than you can know. And please find a way to let us know what we didn't do right and what we might have done okay, so we can do it again and we can help each other. Thank you, National Arts Club. Thank you. and I don't know how to hang up from these damn things. So somebody has to go first.